Stop chasing. Right now, feel what's happening in your body. That exhaustion, that sleep never fixes. You've been running toward your desired reality so long, you forgot what stillness feels like. Here's what nobody tells you about quantum mechanics. The act of chasing is precisely what keeps what you want at a distance. This isn't metaphor, it's measurable physics. Every time you check your bank account, hoping the number changed, scan your phone for that message. Search for evidence your manifestation is closer. You're broadcasting a frequency of lack into the quantum field. Particles exist in infinite possibility until observed. But it's not just observation that matters, it's the quality of observation. When you chase from separation, you lock reality into a configuration where you and your desire remain apart. This video reveals why the moment you stop chasing, reality starts chasing you.
Pause for just a second. Before your thumb starts swiping away from this, before your brain puts this into the category of just another self-help message, I want you to notice something real that's happening inside you right now. There's a particular feeling in your system at this very moment. It's a kind of tiredness that doesn't come from your muscles or bones. It's a weariness that sleep doesn't seem to touch. This is the exhaustion that comes from constantly running after things, from always reaching towards something that seems to stay just out of reach, no matter how much effort you pour in. You recognize this feeling instantly because you've been moving toward your dream life for so long that you can't remember the last time you simply stood in one place. And here's something that most people never tell you about how manifestation actually works at the quantum level. The actual act of running after things creates the exact mechanism that holds what you want away from you. This isn't just pretty words or spiritual language. This is physics that you can measure showing up in your real, everyday experience. Each morning starts the same way. You open your eyes and the race begins immediately. You pull out your phone to see if that number in your bank account shifted overnight. You check your messages looking for the one you've been waiting for. Your eyes sweep across your surroundings, hunting for proof that what you're trying to create is getting closer. And every single time you seek like this, every moment spent checking and hoping, you're sending out a very particular signal into the quantum field. You're broadcasting the frequency of missing something, the energy of not having it yet, the vibration of being separate from what you desire. When quantum physicists started studying what they call the observer effect, they discovered something that changes everything. The simple act of looking for something actually shifts how it behaves at the tiniest levels of reality. Particles that exist in every possible state at once suddenly lock into one definite state the instant someone observes them. But here's the piece that will completely reshape how you think about creating your reality. It's not just that you're observing that matters, it's the energy you bring to that observation. It's what's underneath the looking. When you're chasing after something, you're observing it from the position of not having it. You're looking from a place of distance and separation. And that specific kind of observation, that particular quality of awareness, locks the quantum field into a pattern where you and what you want stay apart. The more intensely you chase, the faster it moves away. This isn't happening because the universe wants to mess with you or test your patience, but because you're literally generating the experience of distance through the frequency you emit while pursuing. You've experienced this yourself, right? Those times when you finally stopped desperately wanting something you'd been chasing hard. Maybe it was someone you were trying to make a relationship work with. Maybe it was a position you kept applying for over and over. Maybe it was a specific result you were forcing to happen. And then, in that moment when you genuinely released it, when you really let go, something moved. Either the exact thing you wanted appeared without any effort, or something even better showed up that you couldn't have seen while you were laser focused on that one target. That wasn't luck or coincidence. That was quantum mechanics doing its thing. The instant you stopped chasing, you stopped sending out that frequency of lack. In that open space created by release, your quantum field naturally lined up with different possibilities. Possibilities that were always sitting there, but stayed invisible to you while you were vibrating at the frequency of desperate pursuit. Most people hear, let go, and think it means giving up completely. They assume it means stop wanting things, stop having dreams, accept that you won't get what you're hoping for. But that's not what's actually happening at the quantum level. Letting go doesn't mean you stop wanting things. It means you stop needing them to feel okay. And the difference between those two states is massive. Wanting something from a place where you already feel complete is a force that creates. It's the universe getting to experience itself through the pleasure of desire. Needing something from a place of feeling incomplete is a force that contracts everything. It's consciousness squeezing infinite possibility down into the narrow tunnel of desperation. One of these creates, the other prevents creation. One attracts, the other pushes away. One allows reality to come toward you. The other keeps you endlessly running after reality that stays ahead of you. Think about how animals move when they hunt. A cheetah doesn't chase its next meal with panic. It doesn't worry about whether it's going to eat today. It doesn't keep checking to see if the gazelle is getting closer. Instead, it drops into a state of complete presence, total focus, intensity that's also relaxed, and then it acts. Not from fear of starving, but from instinct, from being aligned with what it naturally is. The gazelle doesn't escape because the cheetah is desperate. It gets caught because the cheetah is present. You're designed to work the same way, not as someone desperate, scrambling after scraps of what they want, but as a complete being whose simple presence attracts what matches their frequency. But somewhere in your past, someone taught you the opposite. You got programmed to believe you have to work harder, push more, chase faster, want it more desperately if you're going to get what you desire. And that programming has kept you stuck in a quantum loop where the more you run after things, the more you experience the gap between where you are and what you want. Here's what's really going on at the quantum level. When you're in that chase mode, your consciousness sends out a clear signal that says, I don't have this yet. That signal generates a specific electromagnetic pattern in your field. That pattern then organizes the quantum foam of pure potential into arrangements that match your signal. So you literally keep generating the experience of not having what you want because that's the main signal you keep broadcasting every time you chase. The quantum field doesn't judge whether your signal is good or bad. It doesn't try to figure out what you actually want versus what you're creating. It just responds to whatever frequency you're putting out. If you're putting out, I need this because I don't have it, the field arranges circumstances that confirm that frequency. Not because it's working against you, but because it's responding to you with perfect accuracy. But here's where things get really interesting. The second you stop chasing, the moment you truly release that desperate pursuit, something remarkable shifts in your quantum field. The signal changes completely. Not because you stopped wanting things, but because you stepped into a totally different relationship with desire itself. You moved from wanting based on lack to allowing based on abundance. In that shift, the quantum field suddenly gets access to organize reality in ways that were blocked before. Pathways that stayed invisible while you were chasing become obvious. Opportunities that couldn't reach you while you were running in one direction can now find you. People who needed to connect with you but couldn't match your frantic frequency can now resonate with your centered presence. This is exactly why every spiritual tradition talks about surrender, why every mystic points toward letting go of attachment, why every awakened person emphasizes being present instead of constantly pursuing. Not because wanting things is wrong, but because desperate chasing blocks the very thing you're chasing from reaching you. The universe is trying to deliver to you. But you keep running right past the delivery point, looking for it somewhere else. You've probably noticed that the things you actually have in your life now, the things that worked out beautifully, didn't come through desperate pursuit. They came through natural alignment. Maybe you connected with your closest friend when you weren't trying to make friends. Maybe your most successful project happened when you stopped forcing it and started following what felt natural. Maybe your deepest experiences occurred in moments of complete presence, not calculated chasing. That's not random. That's exactly how the quantum field operates. It responds to what you're being, not what you're doing. When you're chasing, your state of being broadcasts, "I lack this." When you're present, your state of being broadcasts, "I am whole." The field matches your being, not your wanting. This is exactly why affirmations and visualizations often fall flat. Because while you're repeating, "I am abundant," your underlying state is actually, "I'm doing this because I feel lack." The field responds to the truth of your state, not the performance of your words. Drop a word in the comments that captures the energy you're stepping into today. Trust, flow, joy, ease, whatever feels true for you right now. Your word matters because it's a quantum seed you're planting not just in this space but in the field itself. So what does stopping the chase actually mean in practice? It doesn't mean becoming passive and waiting around. It doesn't mean stop taking action toward what you want. It doesn't mean just sit there expecting things to magically show up. It means something much more subtle and much more powerful. It means taking action from presence instead of from desperation. It means moving toward your desires from a place of already being complete rather than trying to become complete by achieving them. The difference is something you can feel. When you act from presence, action feels natural, sometimes even easy. There's a flow to it. Doors open without you forcing them. Things line up. You move, and reality moves with you. When you act from desperation, action feels forced. You're pushing, struggling, hitting walls everywhere. You're moving, but reality resists you. Same external actions potentially, but completely different energetic signature underneath, and completely different results that follow. Your quantum field has been trying to show you this pattern. Every time you exhausted yourself chasing and nothing worked out, that was feedback coming through. Every time you released something and things flowed, that was feedback. Every time you forced something and hit resistance, that was feedback. Every time you allowed things and found ease, that was feedback. The universe has been teaching you the same lesson in hundreds of different ways, and now you're finally at the place where you're ready to really receive it. But here's what makes this challenging to actually do. Your survival programming is wired for pursuit. For thousands of years, human survival depended on chasing food, chasing safety, chasing resources. That programming runs incredibly deep. Your nervous system interprets "stop chasing" as "stop surviving." So when you begin to practice this shift, every part of your conditioned self will scream that you're doing it wrong, that you need to try harder, chase faster, want it more desperately. That's not truth speaking. That's programming. And you're at a point in your evolution where you can tell the difference between the two. You can feel the difference between the frantic energy of survival-based chasing and the magnetic energy of presence-based allowing. One feels like running on a wheel that goes nowhere. The other feels like standing in a river and letting the current bring what's meant for you. This is the shift that changes absolutely everything. Not because you stop wanting things, not because you become passive or resigned to less, but because you step into the version of yourself that understands a fundamental truth about how quantum reality operates. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And when you're constantly in a state of chasing, you are lack. You are separation. You are not having. When you're in a state of presence, you are wholeness. You are alignment. You are magnetic. There's a specific moment when this shift becomes real in your body. Not just theoretical, but something you can feel. It's that moment when you're right at the edge of chasing, about to check your email again, about to look at your manifestation list again, about to reach for evidence of progress again, and you pause. You catch yourself in that impulse. You feel the desperation underneath it, and instead of following that impulse, you breathe. You settle back down. You return to this moment exactly as it is. In that pause, something extraordinary happens. The quantum field receives a completely different signal from you. Instead of "I'm lacking and seeking," it receives "I'm whole and present." And in that instantaneous shift, possibilities that were blocked become available. Not because you did something magical, but because you stopped doing the thing that was blocking them. This isn't about being perfect at it. You're not going to stop all chasing immediately and forever. This is about catching yourself more frequently. It's about noticing when you've slipped back into pursuit mode and consciously choosing to return to presence. Each time you do this, you strengthen the neural pathway of allowing. You train your quantum field to operate from a different frequency. You teach your consciousness that there's another way to engage with desire that actually works better. And here's what starts to happen as you practice this. Things begin appearing without you chasing them down. Opportunities find you instead. People reach out unexpectedly. Circumstances align without you forcing them. Money shows up from unexpected sources. Solutions present themselves naturally. Not because you became passive, but because you removed the energetic barrier that was blocking the natural flow. Reality has been trying to chase you this entire time, trying to deliver what's aligned with your highest timeline. But you've been too busy running in the opposite direction to notice it was there. The quantum field operates through attraction, not pursuit. Like attracts like at the frequency level. When you're vibrating at the frequency of chasing, you attract more situations that require chasing. When you're vibrating at the frequency of already having, of being complete now, you attract circumstances that match that fullness. This is why people with wealth seem to attract more wealth effortlessly, while people who are broke struggle so hard. Why people in happy relationships keep finding connection while lonely people chase it endlessly. It's not about what they have in their physical reality. It's about the frequency they're broadcasting from. You can shift that frequency right this second. Not by pretending you don't want what you want. Not by forcing yourself to feel abundant when you feel empty. But by finding genuine presence with what actually is right now. By discovering that you can be whole even while having desires. By recognizing that your essential nature, your consciousness itself, lacks absolutely nothing. Desires are just preferences that consciousness explores. They're not needs that determine your worthiness or completeness. Before we go deeper, I want to invite you into something real. If you've been feeling like something here is making sense, if a part of you is recognizing your own power in these words, tap that like button if you just had an aha moment. Because like attracts like, and I want you to subscribe and stay with this space. Grow with us. This isn't just a channel. This is a frequency. If you felt a shift while watching, you're already tuned in. Hit that bell icon next to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. We're not just watching content here. We're practicing new ways of being. We're not just absorbing information. We're creating possibilities together. We're not just learning. We're remembering what we already know deep down. I'm truly glad you're here. Let's keep growing and shifting together. When you live from that understanding, everything changes. You still move toward your goals, but the energy underneath it is completely different. You're not running from lack. You're moving from curiosity. You're not grasping for completion. You're expressing already present wholeness. And that shift in energy completely reorganizes how the quantum field responds to you. Here's the practice that makes this real in your actual experience. Next time you notice yourself checking, seeking, hoping, desperately wanting evidence of progress, stop right there. Don't judge yourself for having the impulse. Just stop. Take 3 deep breaths. With each breath, feel your awareness settle down into your body, into this present moment, into the simple fact of being alive right now. Then ask yourself this question: can I be whole even if this specific thing never happens? Not am I giving up on it, but can I be okay, complete, worthy, enough, regardless of this outcome? If the answer is no, you've just identified where you're trapped in conditional existence, where you've made your sense of being okay dependent on something external. That's valuable information right there. That's showing you where your sense of self has become tangled up with circumstances. If the answer is yes, you've touched something deeper. The part of you that exists independent of all outcomes. The consciousness that was whole before you had any of your current desires and will be whole after you've achieved every single one of them. That consciousness is what actually stops the chasing, not the ego trying to use letting go as a new strategy to get what it wants, but the deeper awareness that recognizes it's already complete. When you operate from that space, action becomes play instead of desperation. Desire becomes preference instead of need. Life becomes exploration instead of endless striving. And here's the paradox that the quantum field reveals over and over. The moment you genuinely don't need something to be okay, that's precisely when you become magnetic to it. Not because you manipulated the universe with some clever strategy, but because you removed the resistance that was blocking natural flow. You stopped being the person who has to chase and became the person reality chases instead. This might sound too simple to you. Your mind might be looking for more complex techniques, more elaborate processes, more things to do and master. But complexity is often just the ego's way of staying in control, of continuing the chase under a different name. True transformation is usually simple, though it's definitely not always easy. And this shift from chasing to allowing is perhaps the simplest and most challenging thing you'll ever do, because it requires you to trust. To truly trust that you don't have to force life to work out. That you don't have to desperately pursue every opportunity that appears. That you don't have to chase every possibility that crosses your path. That reality itself is intelligent, responsive, and ultimately on your side. Not in a naive way where everything you want magically appears exactly as you picture it, but in a deeper way, where what you actually need unfolds with far more grace than your chasing could ever achieve. The universe is playing a much bigger game than your ego can understand. Your desires are real and absolutely valid, but they're also just surface-level expressions of something deeper underneath. The quantum field is trying to deliver not just what you think you want, but what your soul actually needs for its evolution and expansion. When you're chasing desperately, you often grab for things that look like what you want on the surface, but would actually take you off your highest path if you got them. When you're present and allowing, you remain available for what's truly aligned with where you're actually meant to go. This doesn't mean you'll never chase again. Old patterns run incredibly deep. But each time you catch yourself, each time you choose presence over pursuit, each time you return to the wholeness that's already here, you strengthen a new way of being. You teach your quantum field a new language. You show the universe that you're ready to receive instead of constantly seeking. And as this new pattern stabilizes in your system, you'll start noticing something remarkable. The external circumstances of your life begin to shift, yes. But more importantly, your internal experience transforms. The constant anxiety of, "Am I there yet?" starts to dissolve. The exhausting pressure of, "I have to make this happen," begins to release. The heavy burden of, "I'm not enough until I achieve this," finally lifts. What remains is something unexpected: peace, presence, a quiet joy that isn't dependent on anything being different than it is right now. From that space, you're actually more creative, more inspired, more effective at what you do. Paradoxically, you accomplish more when you stop chasing than you ever did while pursuing desperately. Because you're working with reality instead of against it. You're allowing the intelligence of the quantum field to guide you instead of forcing your limited perspective onto infinite possibility. This is the secret that every master has discovered, that every awakened being points toward, that every tradition teaches in its own language. You already have everything you need. You already are everything you're seeking to become. The chase was never necessary. It was just the ego's misunderstanding of how consciousness and reality actually work together. So stop right here, right now, in this moment. Whatever you've been chasing, set it down for just this moment. Not forever, just now. Feel what it's like to be here without the pursuit, without the seeking, without the desperate hope that something needs to change for you to be okay. Feel the relief in that, the space that opens up, the possibility that exists when you're not contracting around lack. This is where reality actually finds you, not in the chase, in the stillness, not in the desperate pursuit, in the present moment. Not in the future, where you finally have what you want. Right here, where you already are whole. The moment you stop chasing, reality starts chasing you. Not as a reward for good behavior, as a natural response to your shifted frequency. As the quantum field's answer to your broadcast of already being complete, as life's way of delivering what was always meant for you but couldn't reach you while you were running in the opposite direction. You're ready for this. The fact that you're here reading these words, feeling these truths, recognizing this pattern in your own life, means your quantum field has already begun the shift. Something inside you has already stopped chasing. Now it's just a matter of letting your conscious awareness catch up with what your deeper self already knows. Welcome to the end of the chase. Welcome to the beginning of allowing. Welcome to the frequency where reality pursues you instead of you pursuing it. Everything you've been seeking has been seeking you this entire time. It's time to stop running and let it catch you. But let me tell you what nobody mentions about this transition phase. The space between stopping the chase and reality catching up with you can feel like falling through empty space. Your nervous system, which has been running on adrenaline and stress hormones for so long, suddenly doesn't know what to do with stillness. The part of your brain that's been constantly scanning for threats and opportunities goes quiet. And that quietness itself can feel like danger. This is why most people return to chasing within hours or days of releasing. Not because the practice doesn't work, but because the biology of stillness is unfamiliar, sometimes even terrifying to a system used to constant motion. Your amygdala, the ancient part of your brain responsible for keeping you alive, has been interpreting stillness as death for your entire life. Movement meant survival. Pursuit meant you were actively ensuring your continued existence. When you stop, when you genuinely release the chase, your amygdala sends alarm signals throughout your system. It whispers that you're giving up, that you're being lazy, that you're missing opportunities, that everyone else is getting ahead while you're sitting still doing nothing. These aren't truths. These are evolutionary programs designed for a world that no longer exists in the same way. Understanding this distinction is absolutely crucial. When the panic arises after you've stopped chasing, when the voice in your head screams that you need to get back to pursuing, that's not your intuition speaking. That's not the universe telling you that you made a mistake. That's your survival programming experiencing withdrawal from its addiction to constant motion. Just like any addiction, there's a detox period that has to happen. And during that period, every part of your conditioned self will argue for going back to what's familiar, even if what's familiar is exhausting and doesn't work. Here's what helps during this transition. Recognizing that discomfort in stillness is not failure. It's actually evidence that something is working at a deep level. Your nervous system is recalibrating itself. Your consciousness is adjusting to a new frequency. Your quantum field is reorganizing around a different pattern. None of that feels comfortable, because comfort comes from familiarity, and this territory is completely unfamiliar to your system. The discomfort is actually the birth canal. You're in transition between the old way and the new way, and transition is always the hardest part of any journey. There's also something happening at the level of identity that makes this shift particularly challenging. You've probably built much of your self-image around being a doer, a pursuer, someone who makes things happen through action. Our culture rewards this identity heavily. You get validation for hustling, for grinding, for never giving up, for chasing your dreams relentlessly. So when you stop chasing, it can feel like you're losing yourself, like you're becoming someone you don't recognize anymore. And in a way, you actually are. The version of you that chased was operating from survival consciousness. The version that allows operates from creative consciousness. These aren't just different behaviors or strategies. They're different identities, different ways of interfacing with reality, different relationships to existence itself. The transition between them involves a kind of death. Not physical death, but death nonetheless. Real death. The death of who you thought you had to be in order to deserve what you desire. This is where most spiritual teachings leave people completely stranded. They say, let go, but they don't prepare you for the identity crisis that follows that letting go. They say stop chasing, but they don't warn you that your entire sense of self might crumble when you actually do it. They say trust the universe, but they don't mention that trust requires you to release the version of yourself that needs to control everything in order to feel safe. So let me be completely clear about what this process actually involves. You're not just changing a behavior pattern. You're not just adopting a new technique or strategy. You're dismantling a fundamental orientation to life that you've been operating from since you were a child. You're releasing a survival strategy that got you this far but can't take you where you're going next. You're allowing a part of yourself to die so that a deeper part can finally emerge and be seen. That sounds heavy because it is heavy, but it's also liberating in a way that nothing else can be, because what dies isn't actually you. It's the costume you've been wearing, the performance you've been maintaining, the desperate, grasping, never enough version of yourself that was always exhausted because it was always running. What emerges is something that was there all along, but couldn't be seen through all the frantic movement, your essential nature, the consciousness that exists before and after all desires. The awareness that's already whole and complete. Here's what that actually looks like in practice, not just in theory. You wake up in the morning, and instead of immediately reaching for your phone to check if anything has changed overnight, you pause. You feel the impulse to check, but you don't automatically follow it. You stay with the sensation of that impulse, the anxiety underneath it, the hope, the fear, the expectation. You breathe with it. You let it be there without acting on it immediately. And in that pause, something softens in your system. Maybe you check your phone eventually. Maybe you don't. But the quality of checking, if you do it, is different. You're not seeking salvation in those notifications. You're not hoping that one message will finally make you complete. You're just looking because you're curious, from a place that's already okay, regardless of what you find. That shift in energy, subtle as it is, changes everything about what can actually reach you. Or you're in a conversation and someone asks about your goals, your progress, your plans for the future. The old version of you would launch into a performance, trying to convince them and yourself that you're on track, that you're making it happen, that you're successfully chasing what you're after. The new version of you pauses first, feels the impulse to perform, and then speaks from a different place inside. Maybe you say, I'm allowing things to unfold. Maybe you say, I'm trusting the process more now. Maybe you don't try to convince anyone of anything. You just tell the truth about where you actually are. That truth-telling, that refusal to perform progress, that willingness to be in the unknown without pretending you have it all figured out, that's what stops the chase at a deep level. Because chasing isn't just physical action. It's energetic posturing. It's the constant attempt to appear as if you're closer to your goal than you actually are at any given moment. When you stop that performance, when you let yourself be exactly where you are, without enhancement or defense, you step into a different frequency entirely. And here's what starts to happen in that new frequency. You notice things you were too busy to see before, opportunities that were always there but you ran past them looking for something bigger, shinier, more obviously what you thought you wanted. Connections that were trying to form but couldn't because you were moving too fast to feel the resonance. Insights that were waiting to surface but couldn't get through the noise of your constant mental activity planning the next move. In the comments below, share one thing you truly want to manifest and why it's most important for you right now. Maybe it's financial freedom. Maybe it's a loving relationship. Maybe it's vibrant health and energy. Maybe it's something uniquely yours. Let this be a small but profound declaration, a signal to the universe you send not just in this space, but in the quantum field itself. I'm reading every comment and selecting 2 people for free, one-on-one sessions to help bring what you shared to life. Be honest. Be you. The quantum field has been trying to communicate with you this entire time, trying to show you shortcuts, give you downloads of information, open doors you didn't even know existed. But you couldn't receive any of it because you were broadcasting so loudly with your chasing that there was no space left for reception. Stopping the chase isn't just about letting go, it's about opening up, creating space, becoming receptive instead of only projective all the time. This is the part that transforms everything at the deepest level. When you're chasing, you're in output mode constantly, always pushing energy out, trying to make things happen through force of will alone. But manifestation isn't just about output, it requires input as well. You have to be able to receive the guidance, the opportunities, the synchronicities that are trying to reach you from the field. And reception requires stillness, requires presence, requires you to stop broadcasting long enough to actually listen to what's coming back. Think about how a radio works for a moment. If you're constantly transmitting, you can't hear what other stations are broadcasting toward you. You have to switch to receive mode to pick up the signal. Your consciousness functions in exactly the same way. When you're always in pursuit mode, always pushing, always chasing, you're stuck in transmit only. The quantum field is sending you signals constantly, but you can't hear them because you're too busy shouting your desires into the void. The moment you stop chasing is the moment you switch to receive mode. And that's when you start noticing the universe has been responding to you all along. The answers you needed were showing up in conversations you only half listened to. The opportunities you wanted were appearing in forms you didn't recognize because they didn't match your rigid expectations of what they should look like. The abundance you were seeking was flowing toward you, but you kept running past it looking for some other version of abundance you had in your mind. This is exactly why people often report that when they finally let go of a specific desired outcome, something even better appears in their life. It's not that the universe was holding out on them or testing them. It's that they finally became available to receive what was actually trying to come through instead of being fixated on the one narrow channel they thought was the only way it could happen. Your desires are real and valid. Your goals matter, but your vision of how they should manifest is always limited compared to what the quantum field can actually deliver when you let it work. When you chase, you're imposing your limited perspective onto infinite intelligence. When you allow, you're collaborating with that intelligence. One approach is exhausting and often ineffective. The other is effortless and consistently surprising in the best possible ways. Let me give you a specific example of how this plays out in real life. Say you want a new job. The chasing approach is to apply everywhere you can find. Network desperately with anyone who might help. Follow up obsessively on every application. Try to convince people to hire you in every interaction. Constantly check job boards multiple times a day. Feel anxious about every silence that follows an application. Measure your worth by every rejection that comes in. That's output mode only. That's pure transmit with no receiving. The allowing approach is different in quality. You clarify what you actually want and why it matters to you. You take aligned action, applying to positions that genuinely resonate with something inside you, but then you release the outcome of each application. You trust that the right opportunity will find you when the timing is right. You stay present in your current situation instead of mentally escaping to the imagined future job. You notice synchronicities when they appear. You remain open to paths you hadn't considered before. You follow curiosity instead of desperate need driving you. From the outside, these approaches might look similar to someone watching. Both involve taking action toward a goal, but the internal experience and the energetic signature underneath are completely different. One feels like pushing a massive boulder uphill. The other feels like surfing a wave that's already moving. One exhausts you and drains your energy. The other energizes you and fills you up. One creates resistance everywhere you turn. The other creates flow that carries you forward. And the quantum field responds to that difference with completely different outcomes showing up in your physical reality. Here's the practice that integrates everything I've shared so far. Set aside 15 minutes today. Find a space where you won't be interrupted by anything. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. And for these 15 minutes, practice being someone who already has what they've been chasing. Not by imagining having it in your mind, but by embodying the frequency of someone who isn't lacking it in their system. What does that actually feel like in your body? Someone who already has what they want isn't tense, isn't anxious, isn't desperately scanning for evidence that it's coming. They're relaxed, present, appreciating what is right now, curious about what's coming next, but not attached to any specific form it needs to take. They trust themselves completely and trust life to unfold. They move from inspiration rather than desperation driving them forward. Spend those 15 minutes breathing as that version of yourself, moving as them, thinking as them. Not trying to convince yourself you have something you don't physically have yet, but genuinely exploring what it feels like to be the version of you who isn't in chase mode anymore, who doesn't need anything to change to feel okay, who is already complete while still enjoying desire and movement toward goals. This isn't visualization in the traditional sense. This is frequency training for your nervous system. You're teaching your system a new baseline to operate from. You're showing your quantum field what you're actually available for now. You're practicing the state that attracts rather than the state that repels what you want. And if you do this daily, even for just 15 minutes, you'll notice reality beginning to rearrange itself around your new frequency. Things will start appearing without you chasing them down. Solutions will present themselves when you need them. People will reach out unexpectedly. Circumstances will align without you forcing them. Not because you did some magical technique that tricks the universe, but because you stopped doing the thing that was blocking the natural flow. You removed the resistance that was there. You cleared the channel. You became available for what was always trying to reach you but couldn't get through. The moment you stop chasing, reality starts chasing you. Not eventually after you've proven yourself, not after you've earned it somehow, immediately. Because the quantum field is always responding to your frequency in real time. The moment your frequency shifts from lack to wholeness, from desperate pursuit to present allowing, from exhausting chase to magnetic reception, reality must reorganize itself to match. That's not spiritual belief or wishful thinking. That's quantum mechanics in action. You are whole right now, in this moment, not when you achieve your goals, not when you finally manifest what you've been chasing for so long. Now, in this moment reading these words, you are already complete. Your desires are just consciousness exploring itself through you. They're not evidence of your incompleteness. They're expressions of your creative nature. And when you understand that distinction deeply, when you feel it in your bones and nervous system, everything changes in your experience. Stop chasing. Start allowing. Stop pursuing desperately. Start receiving openly. Stop proving yourself. Start being yourself. The shift is simple but profound. And your entire reality is waiting to reflect it back to you the moment you make it real in your system. Welcome home to yourself. Welcome to the frequency where you attract instead of chase. Welcome to the life that's been trying to find you while you were running in the opposite direction. It's time. Let reality catch up with who you've always been, underneath all that chasing. If you watch this far, you're not here by accident. Send this video to that one friend who really needs to hear this message today. You know who they are. Be that person who shares breakthroughs, not just memes. By sharing this, you're spreading the frequency of allowing and trust, and that positive energy will help manifest what you shared in the comments earlier. Real ones share value. If this resonated with you at all, like to anchor the energy, share it with someone who needs it, and comment what clicked for you today. Oh, and subscribe because this is just the beginning of what we're creating together here.